Time is now 6 o'clock, and we'd like to call this meeting to order. In the November meeting of the Dawson County Planning Commission, we'll begin with invocation from Tim Bennett, if you would, please, Tim.
If we could, let us pray. Dear Father, we just come to you today in the name of Jesus. We thank you, Lord, for this wonderful county that we live in, Dawson County. Thank you for its wonderful citizens. I just pray, Lord, everything that we do tonight would please you and please this county and make it the best it can be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. This time we'll have our roll call. Ms. Harmony. Record reflect Jason, Pam, and Neil are present. Missing both John and Steve tonight, but we do have a quorum, so we will proceed with this planning commission meeting. We have our minutes, gentlemen, from October the 18th, 2022. Have you had time to look over them? If so, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moving a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? Motion is carried 2-0. The agenda that's placed before you from staff, have you had opportunity to look over it? If so, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moving a second to approve the agenda. All in favor? Motion is carried 3-0. If you're here tonight to speak either in favor or in opposition of any application and you have made contributions of more than $250 to any local official campaign, then there's a form that you will need to fill out, and Harmony has it up here at the desk. Under new business, we'll begin with application for rezoning, presentation of ZA 22-23 and VR 22-24, Jim King, 400 Business Park. Mr. King, are you available? If you would, please come forward. Write your name and address on a piece of paper there on the podium and give us a presentation of both ZA 22-23 and VR 22-24.
Jim King, 131 Providence Court, Dawsonville, Georgia, here tonight to discuss rezoning of the property. It's near the corner of Stowers Road and Georgia 400. This is a property that I personally own with a partner. This is a property that I personally own with a partner, Jack Conway, who is the owner of Atlanta Gear. It's a gear manufacturing company here in Dawsonville. Employs about over 50 people currently. I've owned this property since I believe it was 2004 when I originally purchased it. Been paying taxes on it ever since, and it's come to the point where we've been marketing the property and had a lot of inquiries on the various uses, and all of them require rezoning. The property was rezoned at one point, the front part of the property to CHB. During that time in 2020, the county changed their zoning ordinance and took many of the uses that were once allowed in CHB and placed them in a new zoning category they called CIR. And therefore, and I've brought several other cases before you under the same circumstances where uses that were once permitted under the current zoning are no longer permitted. So we seek tonight to rezone this property to CIR. You've had a chance to look at the master plan for the property. One of the 100,000 square foot building there is for a future location for Atlanta Gear. They have been expanding at a rapid pace over the last 10 years. And my partner would like to reserve a place for his future expansion. They will not, where his current location is in Hightower Industrial, they have no more expansion room. So it's either, it's either go here or possibly up into Lumpkin County or somewhere, but I would like to reserve some of my time. I would like to reserve some of my time for a rebuttal. Thank you. You have any
King,
questions?
do you remember when this was rezoned CHB? Do you recall the year?
Don't off the top of my head. No, sir.
Okay.
Around 2009, I believe.
It's been quite a while, but didn't recall how long. The proposed uses that are here, how different are they than what you proposed in 2009?
It was mainly at that time, I had the property under contract and, the proposed purchaser had a certain master plan that they wanted to go with. And it was a retail, it was all like a shopping center.
So at this time in 2022, are you looking to retain ownership, you and your partner, or is this a sale in the future?
No, sir. No, we will probably, develop the site and, like I said, preserve him a padded site for his building. And then, some of the uses, we would sell off and some of them we would maintain and keep.
Any other questions, the applicant?
I know that I saw in some of the comments, there was talk of just having one driveway on Stowers Road.
Yes,
There's-
we're currently showing 3. We could probably get by with 2. I would like to have 2 if I could. That's obviously up to the decision of the planning commission, but I would, if possible, maybe the 2 closest to 400 and eliminate the third one, the one that's furthest away from 400.
So are you saying would be willing to eliminate the third one?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Any other questions, the applicant?
And I have, Mr. Chairman, I have looked at the
Staff
use
recommendation?
restrictions, prohibited uses that planning staff recommended. And I'm okay with all of them except for 9, and I'm unsure about 10. Home centers, I don't know if they're talking about a Home Depot or like, a little strip mall with, paint store and, carpet stores, things like that in there. So the smaller things that like a Home Depot, I'm okay with prohibiting, but certainly the smaller stuff I would not.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Mhm.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper there on the podium.
Thank you,
Additionally,
Mr.
for the record, please state your name.
Sure, I'm Tony Passarello. I reside at 180 Sunset Drive, Dawsonville. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board for your service and for allowing me to speak tonight. I support the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve this rezoning application to the BOC. My reasoning can be summed up in the category of consistency. As a board member of the Development Authority of Dawson County, we follow a comprehensive strategic plan moving forward and attracting new businesses. The tactical elements of our plan have been reviewed and accepted by our members. They include, number 1, support of current Dawson County industrial and commercial businesses, and this project is consistent with that. The Atlanta Gear Works people are well above the average salary and benefit packages that are available to the citizens of Dawson County. And we'd like to continue to do that by creating new quality jobs for Dawson County. And this project is consistent with that. To concentrate commercial growth along the 400 corridor, this project is consistent with that. To attract new targeted industry segments to Dawson County, and this project is consistent with that. And lastly, to diversify the Dawson County tax digest, and this project is also consistent with that. And in summary, there are many considerations for any project of this size and scope. All development projects will have pluses and minuses, but rarely does a project fit so well and appropriately and consistently with our goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is anyone to speak in opposition to the application? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper that's there on the podium.
Is there any way while I'm speaking that you can project the copy of the land use plan on the screen? Yeah, I called and asked about it and they said that it would be here. Okay, that's fine. I have a fairly copy here that probably everybody here can see.
Additionally, for the record, please state your name.
Yes, I was just writing my name. I'm Arlene McClure. And I live at 772 Stout, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
772 Stowers Road West. We have a farm on Stowers Road, not adjacent to this property, but it would be very much affected by this property. It's been a long time since I've been before this board and some new faces and certainly some people I've seen before. Want to begin by thanking you for your service to Dawson County and definitely appreciate what you do. I know it takes a lot of time. And I also want to thank you for allowing me to come and express my concerns about this potential development. This map that I asked to have shown, I was told it's in your packets. Obviously, people that are here know what we're talking about. This is an agricultural residential area. Stowers Road has residential and agricultural on both sides. About 900 acres of the agriculture is in conservation. That's how serious we are about preserving what we have there. There is no industrial anywhere around where we live. There is highway commercial at 400 and 136 and at Grant Road East and 400. Highway commercial is different from industrial. The applicant has said in his application that even though this property is surrounded by agriculture, it will become industrial in the future. Well, that is not the plan that the landowners have for this property. We have no intention of letting our property go industrial. That 900 or not quite 900 acres has been in two families for well over 100 years. And I believe both families plan to keep it in the families. So let's face an unfortunate fact. There are very few places left with the natural beauty of Stowers Road. The land use plan was approved to preserve that environment while recognizing there would be some development on 400. They allowed commercial highway business, not industrial. Actually, I feel like the community should be grateful to those of us who are still wanting to preserve the natural beauty and environment that we have. There's so little of it left. But let's look at what might happen if 100,000 acre square foot manufacturing facility is approved. First of all, the entrance to Stowers Road would be changed and widened so trucks could enter the road. Yes, trucks on Stowers Road West. this little narrow road that begins paved and turns to gravel. Not only would they cut a road entrance into the industrial site on Stowers Road, there would be trucks coming in to use that. On Stowers Road, it is used by the residents, by friends of our residents, and it is used for things like walking, very healthy, jogging, biking. It has been used even for training for the Peachtree Road Race, and high school athletes. Imagine the danger to those people using the road if there are trucks on the road. We already have somewhat of a danger with cars making the wrong turn. They're heading north and their GPS says make the next left. They think they're at 136. So they turn in on Stowers Road. They realize they're on the wrong road. They get a little angry. They speed up. They go down to the curve, turn around and speed up even faster going out. If a truck does that, there's not much room down at that curve to make the turn. It could be very dangerous. How are the northbound trucks going to make that left turn onto Stowers Road? From the light at 136, which is the light north of Stowers Road, there's a slight hill. Cars coming down from that light speed up. By the time they hit Stowers Road, they're probably doing 70 to 80 miles an hour. Yeah, I know they're not supposed to, but they do. If there's a truck attempting to make that left turn, a truck heading north attempting to make that left turn, and some of these cars are heading south, maybe the truck doesn't quite make the turn in time. It's just an accident waiting to happen. That turn is risky enough, even in a car. I'd like to know if consideration has been given to the environment on that proposed site. I know that they have received a letter from DNR expressing concern about endangered species, birds, bats, fish. There are a number of streams that run through there. As a matter of fact, most of the runoff between 136 and Lumpkin Campground, Harmony Church, flow into 3 creeks that end up flowing through this property, through the Stowers property, into a big creek that crosses Grant Road and then flows to the Etowah River through our property. The Etowah River is the source of our drinking water. There is a culvert on Grant Road that frequently floods during heavy rain. The summer of 21, I had the county manager and the then head of transportation come out and look at the damage that's being caused by flooding. Every time there's a heavy rain, even now, a heavy rain, that culvert overflows, flooding goes off into our pasture. It recedes, it brings back trash, branches, sticks against our fence. That's a big problem for us because we then have to fix our fence. But the bigger problem is that as that water recedes from our pasture, and we raise cows, it is taking with it chicken manure, cow manure, fertilizer, pesticides, everything that it takes to provide pasture for cows. It takes that into the stream that runs through that culvert, which needs to be replaced, and into the Etowah River. That's our drinking water. We looked at it as to what we could do. And there was some talk about taking the small culvert out and putting in 2 big culverts. And then there was concern about the Etowah Darter. Could, with the big culverts on dry weather, could it make that little jump up through and, because they'd like to swim upstream. Well, then we looked at just making it free flow. Put a bridge across. And we looked at several bridges in Dawson County in other areas where it was a similar situation and they put a bridge. Well, it turned out that it would cost about $1 million to do the bridge. County didn't have $1 million. A couple of other things happened and that whole project kind of just went by the wayside. And we are still sitting with a small culvert that absolutely cannot handle any more water going through it. As I stated, as it is, a heavy rain, it floods. I don't see how you can build this development that we're talking about, including, what is it? 30, I can't remember how many acres, 30 some acres with 100,000 square foot warehouse and other little buildings and a parking lot. Even if they do mitigation and collect the water, treat the water, then let it out, that water is going to flow downstream through that culvert. So does the developer or the county have $250,000 to $1 million to maybe speed up replacing the culvert that's there? I did not see a retention pond on the plan that was submitted. I don't know what the plan might be to handle the water. I'm going to close by noting that there have been some mistakes that are made by the Board of Commissioners. Maybe you don't think there were mistakes, but the most recent one was on October 1st. The result of that mistake was when the billboard on 400 and Harmony Church lit up. I had been seeing it being built, thought it was ugly being built. When I looked out across our beautiful pasture and the night sky that I have enjoyed every night since I've been up here, what I saw across the way was something that looked like a spaceship. It was that blankety blank billboard that got approved. I'm not sure when, sometime in the last couple of years. I heard that the BOC did not want to get into a lawsuit because they felt they would lose, and so they just approved it. Now that's what I heard. That has made me particularly reluctant to allow changes to the land use plan. So many of our citizens spent countless hours creating that plan. So I urge you to not make the mistake of approving this 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility that will ruin the rural atmosphere and the ecological value of Stowers Road West. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. Anyone else to speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper that's there on the podium. For the record, please state your name.
Yes, my name is Nate Bednar. I live off of Stowers Road. My wife and I moved to this area about 4 years ago, coming from Sandy Springs. And one of the things that drew us to the area off of Stowers Road was its beauty. And I am actually appalled tonight that such a decision could be made to change the place where we live by allowing a warehouse to be built. And I just want you to just think with me for a minute. If you woke up one morning and you were used to waking up there along Stowers Road, and there are folks that live along that road, as has been stated, and you go out on your front porch and you're looking out into the distance, you're used to seeing trees, wildlife. We've seen numerous deer, fox, even bears in our area. We've seen hawks. We've seen beautiful woodpeckers. We've seen streams. We've noticed those. My oldest or youngest son that lives with us has taken many a walk down Stowers Road and down to where the farm is that was mentioned a few minutes ago. We've walked down that way as well and seen the cows and the farm. All of that is being proposed to change with this ill-thought decision. And I would urge you, Chairman Hamby, and the rest of you to think through this decision. The following would change if this decision was made. Number one, we would be taking away a wildlife habitat. Number two, the noise issues, which have already increased because of the cutting down of trees along 400, that would increase. Number three, the safety issues around the entrance to Stowers Road from 400, those safety issues would increase. We have people that like to walk and run. Those folks would be prohibited from doing those things. Number four, there would be destruction of trees and other things that are currently planted along that road. A buffer zone would no longer exist. And lastly, those that live along Stowers Road and the adjacent properties would come home to a lot of traffic, a lot of noise, and would have their particular home invaded now by people that we don't know. What I mean by that is that our tranquility would be hampered in a great way. So I urge you tonight to reconsider this decision and to think of this in light of if it were your house and your home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bednar.
Appreciate
Anyone
it.
else speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper that's there on the podium. For the record, please state your name.
My name is Tanya Wallace. I actually live at 173 Old White Oak Trail, so I'm in the subdivision. You'll have to forgive me. I've never stood up in front of a few people before, but I did have a few things I did want to say. Our subdivision, and I've seen a lot of my neighbors here, is beautiful. We've been very fortunate, and I'm actually feel a little teared up, but it used to be even my great grandparents' property at one time, 300 acres. And it's always been Keppa's farm, and it's always been beautiful, and we love it, and we love our road. And I hate to be cheered in front of my neighbors, but after seeing it today, that you would be looking at 137 to 175 vehicle trips that would be exiting on our road from this facility, just simply because they want to put another storage area up, or they want to put another commercial building that's going to be way bigger than the outlet mall and strip all of our trees. And probably when the economy tanks, will be a bunch of empty buildings. That'll be all that's left. And not only that, but what you would invite up to our area in the means of crime and folks that would be coming up to work at a place like that and storing their stuff. And especially since we've had so much influx of people moving in, there's been a big issue, I know, for our county as well. And not only that, but the traffic alone, there's so many accidents. It's on 136 at that red light. We hear the sirens every day from our house. We're on the ridge. And also when you pull out on that road, you have to go at certain times of the day or you don't get in the road, especially if you're headed northbound to go to Dahlonega, because you have people making U-turns at our intersection all the time because they've missed turning from Ingalls as well. So you've got a lot of issues. We have a lot of really good neighbors. We have a really wonderful subdivision. And like I said, for me personally, it was family property. And I hate to cry in front of my neighbors. But I would ask, instead of stripping the land and putting up another bunch of useless buildings for money, that perhaps there'd be a better purpose for it. I know you can't stop growth. I know you can't stop progress, but it needs to be purposeful progress. And it needs to be something maybe that has a little beauty to it besides just a bunch of empty buildings for a lot of storage for a lot of people moving from Florida and California here that don't appreciate who we are as a community and where we've all come from. Because for the folks like us, that's always had family here, and especially want to have our grandkids and our families enjoy this land, we're opening that up to a huge mess. Because if this passes and it gets stripped, it's just a matter of time for everybody, even maybe where you folks live, having that go as well. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Anyone else speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper that's there on the podium. For the record, please state your name.
My name is Fred Stowers, 201 Stowers Creek Circle. I am currently the old Stowers of the old Stowers Farm. And I come to address this applicant's proposal in a sense of the variations he's talked about, as if it somewhere down the road, this would probably be some kind of commercial development on the overlay. The applicant knew when he bought the property that 400 overlay was there, and we knew the 400 overlay was there. But what we're talking about here, he proposes, and I've known Jim for years, and I appreciate the Development Authority's activities in some respects that they've done well over the years, but this is spot zoning at its worst. When you put not just commercial, but you put a industrial build an industrial park that's far removed from sewage capacity at this point. So I wanted to address the fact that if it's ever approved, that these things be considered. You got to have enough appreciation of a residential area. It's not an agricultural area, it's a residential area. There are over 30 houses within 150 feet of this property, bordered on the west and north sides. Any manufacturing or industrial facility that's a rooftop that covers over 2 acres is going to make a lot of noise. Now consider the noise regulations of our own regulations and 34.1 of Dawson County regulations. And I'll refer to those with your permission. briefly here. This goes to, by the way, the variance request of trying to reduce the parking area by 50% and reduce the setback restrictions by 25%. The only reason we can see in the application for requesting this is so the development can make the property more valuable. So he's asking you members of the commission to help him make more money than he thought he could make when he had the property originally. So you can then build more space on here and build a more dense industrial space on it. It'll be interesting to see if Jim gets around to ever developing this, because the for sale signs have been on it a long time. I suspect that his process will about be ended when he gets whatever approval he can get from you and from the county commissioners. But that's the way it works. That's the system. There's nothing wrong about that. It's just his business. But I think it's the neighborhood's business to remind everyone of the noise that an industrial facility will create. Reading from the reg itself, noise prohibition in 34.1. Operation of prohibited is any power to compressor, air compressor, internal combustion engine, or other similar equipment or machinery that causes noise due to its operation within 1,500 feet of adjoining residential or noise sensitive area, unless it is equipped with a functional muffler device, or is contained or housed in a structure sufficient to deaden the noise to the point that the noise is not plainly audible across the source property line of the property that emits it. Now, true, that is the Dawson County regs from 10 p.m. till 7 a.m. But if you're going to ever permit an industrial facility manufacturing in a residential area, surely common sense says it's going to be a nuisance if you can hear it within 1,500 feet. In addition to that, plainly audible across the property line. The only alternative to residents in this area, and Mr. King can't control, he has no interest in controlling who comes into this facility. If it's approved, it could be any industrial activity. And if it makes noise, it makes noise. How do you protect it? You protect it by first putting restrictions on anything that's approved now or hereafter, put it on the property. Otherwise, it goes on the burden of the community, of the residents, to have to enter into legal proceedings to stop a nuisance. And the county regs have already defined a nuisance. You don't have to worry about what a nuisance is because it's now defined with greater minds than we can put to it. But I don't know too from my neighbors, and I agree with them, they talk about the streams. There are no less than 3 streams coming across this property that combine on my neighbor's property and go across my property. And it was really revealing this afternoon as I was coming up here. I watched that stream and it's pretty full because we've had a good bit of rain. And for the first time in a long time, there wasn't a speck of yellow or red in it. Just good, clean water like it was when it was coming out of the spring head. And that's in all the time is they've been working on 400 there. They've been for weeks cutting those back and plowing the ground around there. And they controlled the runoff. I don't know any other project that's ever controlled the runoff. The rivers run red. So I don't know. I don't see any provision on the plan of how they're going to pipe the streams that are there and whether they're pipeable. They're considered navigable streams, I'm sure, at least a continuous flow. But if these industrial activities are permitted, I mean, the neighborhood is gone. Unless they can at least contain it within the walls, as the regs say, contain it within the walls 24/7 and keep the setback and parking restrictions as they are. We knew what they were and we live by them. We pay high taxes too, Mr. Development Authority. We pay a lot of high taxes. We're reminded every November, and we're pleased to pay them if we get results. But Industry is not the only thing that pays taxes in this county. In fact, it is supported primarily by the residential people now. All the more reason to keep those setback restrictions and apply the noise abatement to this project, if ever approved, 24-hour basis. I love my home and born and raised county. And I love my neighbors. I'm long in the tooth. I don't have that much to go. I've already beat the annuity tables. And I enjoy every day. That's what I'm doing, sitting down on the road, fixing my fence and watching the horses and riding my tractor that's so beat up I can't keep it running. But and I know you do too. And first and foremost, we know what you're sacrificing to be on this commission. Been there, done that in sort of a way. And I know what the commissioners themselves in the county have to go through. And we appreciate your dedication to do that, taking the time. And we know that you will consider our needs honestly and fairly. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Towers. Anyone else speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper on the podium.
My name is Doug Powell. I live on 604 Stowers Road West. I've been there for 26 years. Compared to Mr. Stowers, I'm a newcomer. You've already heard testimony from my neighbors about how much we enjoy the property where we live. We enjoy the peace and quiet. We enjoy interacting with nature. And I fear from this project that will all be thrown into jeopardy. I think this is a very ill-conceived, impractical, and improperly located development. There's a letter from the DNR that was sent to the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission. I hope you have copies of that or have
We
access
do.
to that.
We have copies.
There's numerous species that are either endangered or close to being on that list for endangered. One of those is a bat. And we just found a dead bat on our property 2 days ago. So these creatures of nature are stressed currently. And the stress that they're going to be expected to endure with this kind of a development is just beyond imagination. I'm concerned about the traffic. The Georgia Mountain Regional Commission letter I referred to says that there will be approximately 1,264 vehicle trips per day, compared to something in the range of a dozen or two now. 137 to 175 vehicles per hour. This is mind-boggling to those of us who relish the peace and quiet that we have now. We have no control. If this goes through, we have no control over the traffic day and night. We have no control over what will be warehoused there. Someone spoke a while ago about the danger of exiting Stowers Road onto 400. 136 is a quarter mile to the north, and it's on a hill, and you cannot see traffic coming over that hill. If a truck pulls out there and there are people coming down that hill that are speeding, it's going to be disaster. I know this property is going to be developed in the future in some capacity. But not this, not now. There's no need for this. This kind of a warehouse, there's no development, nothing to be served from this warehouse further north. Not now and never will be. Well, I don't know about never, but probably not in our lifetimes. The hospital that's going in up at the end of 400 at Highway 60 is not going to have a need for this kind of a warehouse. If they do, they'll probably build their own. Thank you for your time and thank you for your service to the county.
Please write your name on the piece of paper there on the podium. Please put your name on the piece of paper there. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Anyone else speak in opposition? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper on the podium. For the record, please state your name.
My name is Nick Muldoon. I live at 389 Stowers Road West. So that's the adjoining property to the one that is proposed for the development. I've lived in Dawson County my entire life. I'm 23 years old. I went to Dawson County Middle School and Dawson County High School. I also went to the University of North Georgia, which is in Dahlonega. My entire life, I've lived at this property. My mother purchased the property a while ago, and she purchased it with the intent that hopefully she would be able to pass it on to me and my siblings, or at least we could at least develop and build our own houses on this land, because it is about 4.5 acres. So there's enough road frontage for us to each have a house. I'm the only child to actually express interest in inheriting this land. And I still want to, but I mean, this puts a damper on things. On the property, if you're looking at it, there's the jagged cutout at the end. So that's the adjacent property where we're at. The highest point is where the house is. The rest of the property is actually just pasture. We own several goats. We've had cows before, donkeys, chickens as well. It's just, it seems kind of asinine that they would want to essentially put a parking lot next to a pasture. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was houses, and with houses we would get neighbors, and with neighbors you can at least talk to them. And I mean, you might not be happy when they're first there. Like, I mean, my family was not happy when the development happened right across the street from us with the subdivision, but we've gotten over that, and we've made actually friends with most of the people that live up there. And I mean, you can at least talk to them, and that's how you become friends with them. But with this development, I won't be friends with anyone working at this facility. I mean, I doubt I would ever talk to them. I'd maybe have complaints for them. The traffic would be terrible. When I originally looked at this, I didn't realize that there were going to be driveways going onto Stowers Road. It would be one thing if they were going to put just the access on 400, but with 3 driveways, one of them being very close to my house, the third farthest down, essentially it goes from no traffic to all of the traffic of Dawson County almost just being on this one road. Stowers Road, it connects to 400, but then it loops around in a horseshoe to Grant Road, which is what my neighbors have been talking about. Every property that has been built, or every house that has been built, it's all for families. It's developed for residential life. There's nothing like this anywhere near Stowers Road or Grant Road. If you're looking at the property, you see how it's a jagged cutout. It's not a straight line. That is because my property, or my mother's property, it goes to the center of a creek. actually. And that's why that line is so jagged. So one of my big questions would be what happens to the creek there? Is that part of the development? Do we have any say in that? I do see that there's a buffer zone there, but I'm not certain how that would all affect it. That's really all I have to say. I just disapprove, I guess. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Muldoon. Anyone else speaking in opposition to the application? Seeing none at this time, we'll close the board for discussion. Mr. King, would you like a rebuttal at this time? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the surrounding owners that have come tonight to speak. I would like to say that, as Ms. McClure stated, there's 900 acres in conservation down this road. The county's tax base, because conservation property has a greatly reduced tax rate, the county's got to have a tax base to support that. Every 10 years or so, the county, each commissioner appoints citizens within each district on a committee, a land use committee, to come up with a comprehensive plan for the county, for the growth of the county. It's made up of citizens, not politicians. These citizens come together and they have to weigh these things. They have to weigh setting aside farmland or preserving natural areas and farmland versus what areas to be commercial to balance that tax base. And therefore they come up with a future land use plan. If you'll notice on the future land use plan, the area beyond this property is designated as agricultural. So if the future commissioners do follow the land use plan, like they would for this property, that would remain agricultural. But this land is designated as one of those designated as commercial. It's right on 400. That's your tax base for Dawson County. And those are the things you have to weigh. Now, I know there's concern about traffic down Stowers Road, but for this development, no one will need to go beyond the driveway on Stowers Road, which is about 1,000 feet off of 400. And if you like, we can put signs up saying no left turn or, 400 this way, this direction, to make sure that people know that don't turn left on Stowers Road. It's gravel just beyond, not very far at all beyond this entrance. So I would listen. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. This time we'll close the board for discussion. Gentlemen, any discussion?
The access on Stowers Road is what concerns me the most. What do you guys think?
It is a limited side area, dangerous there. As far as 400 traffic is concerned. Would it be necessary, Jim, to have that entrance on Stowers, or could you only have entrance on 400 only?
Yes, sir. It would be necessary for traffic coming north on 400 to be able to turn into this. I will say, from Stowers Road, it's 1,600 feet from there up to the top of the hill at 136, where the light at 136 is, and it's clear visibility. So as far as sight distance turning across 400 on the Stowers Road.
No, it's not.
Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you, Mr. King.
Mr. Hamby,
Yes, sir.
what are your thoughts?
As always, we have a proposal for CIR, was CHB. Things did change in 2020. Still have to weigh your residents versus commercial. Still have to weigh your future land use plan like we do in every single scenario. Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend denial.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moving a second, all in favor of recommending denial? Motion is carried 2-0 with one abstention being me. As the chairman, typically don't vote unless there's a tie. There will be a Board of Commission meeting on December the 15th following the 4 o'clock work session. We need to address the variance as well. So you had time to look at the variance.
Motion to recommend denial of the variance.
Second.
Moving a second to deny the variance. All in favor of denial of the variance? Motion is carried 2-0. Mr. King, you'll be presented December the 15th before the Board of Commissioners. And any stakeholder that has a stake in this piece of property will also need to, if you like, hear the final say so on December the 15th before the Board of Commissioners. This is a recommending board. We make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and they have the final say. With that, presentation of ZA 22-24 and VR 22-26, Jim King Kylo Tract. Mr. King, are you available to speak? You would please come forward, and since your name and address is already on there, could you present us with this particular application?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Again, Jim King, 131 Prominence Court, Dawsonville, Georgia. This particular case was heard in 2019. During that rezoning request, and I have the zoning number here. This zoning was approved in 2019 ZA 19-22 as CHB as part of an overall plan, which included some multifamily property behind it, as well as all the frontage was part of ZA 19-22 that rezoned to CHB. In 2020, the county changed their zoning ordinance and they introduced a CIR zoning and divided the uses, took many of the uses out of CHB and put them in the CIR zoning. They felt that the CHB was just too broad of a zoning category. You may remember about a year ago, I presented a track on Lumpkin Campground that fell into the same category. And in essence, what they did when the county changed the zoning ordinance, they took uses, basically it took property rights away from the people that had their property zoned CHB. So that's exactly why I'm here tonight. During that zoning case and the public hearings, there were certain uses to appease the Kylo Church Road community. We agreed to limit everything north of the power line to some very specific uses. But in return, everything south of the power line was any use presented and had no restrictions on it, any use presented in CHB. And so in 2020, when they changed the ordinance, everything south of the power line, the uses were taken away. So that's what I'm here tonight. We're not looking to change anything that had a specified limited use on it. Only the stuff south of the power line that had no limitations on the use. And we're asking you to rezone that tonight to CIR.
And does that cover the variance? Is that what the variance is about?
Yes, we're asking for a 25-foot reduction in the and the setback adjacent to 400, which this board and the Board of Commissioners has approved numerous times up and down 400, more times than I can count. So we're just asking for that same flexibility with this site.
This is only on the portion that fronts 400.
And it's only from the power line to down to basically where the Chamber of Commerce building is. That's where it is.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, Mr. King.
Mhm.
Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, anyone here speaking in opposition to the application? Seeing none, at this time, we'll close the board for discussion. Gentlemen, any discussion on ZA 22-24? Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend approval of ZA 22-24. And can we do the variance with it?
Let's go one at a
Okay,
time,
one at
if
a
you
time,
would,
sis.
please.
CA 22-24.
Second.
Moving a second to recommend approval. All in favor? Motion is carried 2-0 with one abstention. As to the variance, is there a motion?
Motion to recommend approval of the variance.
Motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Second.
Moving a second to approve the variance. All in favor? Motion is carried 2-0. Mr. King, we have recommended to approve the zoning as well as the variance. You will be heard December the 15th for the Board of Commissioners after their 4 o'clock work session. Presentation of ZA 22-25 and VR 22-27. Perry Betterton. If you would, please come forward. Write your name and address on the piece of paper that's out on the podium. And for the record, please state your name.
My name's Perry Betterton.
And if you would, please give us a brief reason for your rezoning request.
Sure. I'm requesting to rezone 2.8 acres of land on Highway 53 to commercial highway business in order to sell dump trailers and seasonal produce. I'm also requesting a variance on the maximum light pole height, which evidently the height of the existing light poles is approximately 10 feet higher than would be allowed in the new requested zoning. Can I go ahead and go into? Okay.
Please tell me all of it while you're out in
All
front
right.
of me.
The planning staff has recommended CCB zoning instead of CHB. I believe CHB is the appropriate zoning, a more appropriate zoning due to the parcels around it. Directly across the street are 5 parcels zoned CHB directly across the highway. Those are also Chippers Landscaping, just about 1,000 feet away from my property, was also rezoned last year to CHI, which is commercial highway intensive. And all 7 of these parcels are in the same future land use classification as my property. Etowah Water owns the property directly next door to mine, on the same side of the road. And I think they just acquired it last year. I believe due to the passing of the former resident of that house, but I believe it's Etowah Water's intention to move their headquarters to that parcel. That's my understanding. Eventually move it there, which would probably require a CHB or CHI zoning to that. Also, the other property owned by Etowah Water that almost touches the back corner of my property is currently zoned CHB also. So I just think there's a lot more CHB around than there is CCB. Also, so in concerning that it's not consistent with the future land use plan, what I believe is that these parcels were zoned CHB before the future land use plan, I believe. So it's more like the future land use plan is not compatible with the current zoning. So, but anyway, and then I have some comments on the conditions proposed also by the planning staff. Can I go through those?
Please.
Okay. Condition number 1, I'm agreeable to that. We discussed the 15-foot buffer. I would like to change evergreen trees to understory trees because I don't like Leland cypress or that kind of thing. I think they're ugly. I think like some hardwood trees that change color in the fall would be pretty. Also, I'm agreeable to condition number 2, but condition number 3, that no other items shall be offered for sale on the site other than pull behind dump style trailers and seasonal products. I feel this condition is too restrictive, honestly, because it's my current intention to sell only dump trailers and seasonal produce. But if the market changes, I don't want to be I need to have some flexibility in what I can sell. I mean, to provide for my family. Condition number 4. Part, it's the prohibited uses and that, for that zoning. I see under part D, there's fast food, drive-in food services. I just would like to point out that the property directly across the street, I believe, it's my belief that it's owned by the owner of Dairy Queen, who I don't know what their intention is, but I can guess, I just wonder if their zoning was restricted against fast food use, because if mine is restricted against that, then that's not really equal protection to me. I have no intention of running a fast food restaurant, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, I don't like a whole bunch of restrictions on what my zoning is if they don't have them. Also, part F of condition number 4 about being tire dealers. I have no intention of being a tire dealer, but I do sell tires to go with the trailers that I sell. So I don't know if that counts me as a tire dealer, but if it does, I don't want that restriction. Condition number 5. I guess I have more of a question on that one. What would be required if I want to sell something else? If I agree to this condition, would I have to go through a whole new rezoning? Would I have to get a planning? I'm just asking really. I don't do this every day. So
In the event that all these stipulations were put against you in this piece of property, in the event that you were rezoned
Mhm.
and all these stipulations were placed on you, if you desired to do something different than what was stipulated, you'd have to come back for a variance before this same board.
A
So
variance,
just
okay.
to answer that question, but continue on. You've got 6
Thank
and
you.
7. So
I would rather not agree to that condition, but I guess that's up to y'all. And condition number 6, I would like it to be CHB rather than CCB. So I guess that those the wording there, the uses allowed within the CRB and CCB land use districts, I would propose that be changed to CHB. And condition number 7, I'm agreeable to that. So that's all I have.
and
don't
your
think-
variance, what was your variance about?
The variance is the light pole height.
Oh, the light pole height.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And you've already got your light poles and they already have lights on them.
Correct.
Okay. How much of your 2.8 acres is contained in the gravel lot there?
Right. Approximately 1 acre.
Okay. And what do you have in mind for the remainder of your property?
Before I was going to set up a produce stand there and sell produce and grow some produce on the back part.
Oh, on the back part. Okay.
Yep. I actually have some raised beds back there, which I grew peanuts and squash and that sort of thing. I don't propose doing anything back there anytime soon, other than maybe just cleaning it up, but not like moving dirt.
So at this time, can you access the back part from the inside, or is that fence all the way around?
There's a gate going to the back
There's a
part.
gate that goes back. Okay. Any other questions, applicant?
Oh, yeah, when you gravelled the property and put the fence in and the lights, what was the intention at that time?
As I said, it was a produce stand. I was going to sell boiled peanuts and some produce. And the county marshal said, I can't sell those things unless I grow them there. So I planted them there to sell. And basically by the time I harvested them, it was too late to
late.
sell them. So that's where I am now. That was about a year ago, or it was in the summer of last year.
And how long have you owned the property?
I've owned the property since, I'm not good with dates, but I think it's been like 3 to 4 years. I built a boiled peanut trailer and I was going to set up, to sell boiled peanuts there. And then the county marshal said, no, you can't do that. And so that's where I am.
Any other questions, applicant? Thanks, sir. Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, at this time, we'll close the board for discussion. Gentlemen, do we have any discussion?
I mean, I agree with them about the trees, but at the end of the day, a hardwood tree doesn't really constitute a buffer.
Yes, I understand. He has 7 stipulations listed against him. He's pretty violently opposed to 3, 5, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. You reckon he could probably get along with 1 as evergreens if you knocked off 3, 4, 5, and 6? I bet he probably could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is other stuff other than Leland cypress
Certainly.
that would fit the, yeah.
Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend approval with conditions 1, 2, and 7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion is carried 2-0. As to the variance, allowing him to keep his light poles that are already up there and lit up.
Motion to approve the variance.
Second.
Moves a second to approve the variance, all in favor? Motion is carried 2-0. Your rezone will be heard December the 15th by the Board of Commissioners. Following their 4 o'clock work session, we have recommended approval to the rezone, and we have passed your variance to allow your light poles to stand as is.
CHP.
Yes. With stipulations 1, 2, and 7 intact. That means still saying evergreen, but you're gonna have to find something other than a Leland cypress to make you happy. Presentation of ZA 22-27, Miles Hansford and Talent, OBO Darcet Patel. Someone here to speak for Miles Hansford and Talent, perhaps Mr. Underwood. You would please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper on the podium.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, Ethan Underwood, on behalf of Mr. Darcet Patel. We are requesting to zone a piece of property from RSR to CRB. CRB, oh, there we go, we've got a presentation here. We got about a 2¼ acre tract. It's just outside of the city limits of Dawsonville on Highway 53, very close to the high school. And looking at this particular tract, if we'll go to the next slide. You can see here, just like I said, just outside the city limits and catty corner from school property. Next slide, please. One of the questions that we had gotten is, well, what does the comprehensive plan call for in this area? And it is primarily residential. In fact, it's shown as sub-rural as residential, but in the comprehensive plan, it does say in some rare occasions that some commercial is appropriate if it's appropriately scaled, and it's designed to provide service to the surrounding areas. So what we opted to do is, rather than make a big commercial zoning, try to come in here with this commercial rural business category. It by design limits the scope of the development. And in fact, if a convenience store is approved, it's limited to only 1 cash register. So it's designed to provide that more country feel and convenience for folks in the area without opening up Pandora's box and bringing in a large commercial development area. If you go to the next, please. Oh, there we go. That's what it talks about in the comprehensive plan, that there are some specific services if you're providing it to nearby residents that is called for as an appropriate zoning. But it does need to be a low intensity use. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan. It is a small building. You can see, in fact, the convenience stores pushed to the rear. The gas pumps will be fairly limited. I believe that our client is looking for 3 to 4 gas pumps at maximum. He's not looking for a large racetrack style gas pump islands with about a 2,400 square foot convenience store. Next slide, please. This is the feel that he's looking for. Obviously, the layout is a little bit different. We'll have to change the gas pumps. But it is designed to be a small, low impact store that's designed for convenience. We understand that this is a bit of an exception under the comprehensive plan, but it's a permissible exception if it's done properly. Staff has recommended several zoning conditions that our client has no objection to. We think these are all designed appropriately to keep the scope and scale down. For example, it still prohibits temporary buildings, prohibits electronic message boards, prohibits car washes, prohibits drive-in services, and also auto sales or storage. There is a requirement for a minimum 70% brick or stone or stucco per vertical wall plane. Our client, I think, is looking to go more with the 70% brick per wall plane. And it does allow some accent materials, requires minimum 25% open space and landscaped open space. It establishes minimum setbacks from the respective rights of way, as well as landscape buffers. Let's see, dumpster requirements, dumpster screening. Canopies, overall height of canopies is not allowed to exceed 22 feet. So it's got lighting restrictions, automobile screening, again with landscaping. And then also bicycle parking. So it is intended so folks can, go buy Coke, buy Gatorade, and then be able to commute via bicycle. So with that, we think this will be an upgrade to the property. It has been a bit of an overgrown old barn on the property. We think this will help provide a needed service in the area, but will also, without, as we said, opening up Pandora's box by blowing up the scope of the commercial use. We would submit that this is that rare exception in this sub area for a low intensity commercial use, and we would respectfully ask that you recommend approval. And we'll reserve any time we have for questions or rebuttal.
Thanks, Mr. Underwood. Is anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? If you would, please come forward, write your name and address on the piece of paper there on the podium. For the record, please state your name.
My name is Michael Turner. You need any other information?
Well, need to see why you're opposed to the.
Yes, I'm opposed generally because there's been very little information given to me about this proposed project. There was an informational meeting held about it. I actually was the only person in attendance at that meeting. The attorney that was there knew very little about the details. He didn't have any information about any conditions or anything like that. I asked many questions and did not get answers other than we'll get back to you, which hasn't happened. And so I'm here as I own most of the property that surrounds this property on the east and west and south side of this property. I'm very concerned about the impact that this property will have on my property. I'm concerned about the water flow and how it currently flows and how they're going to concentrate it. And are they going to need easements on my property? I'm concerned about Acorn Road, which is a 30-foot gravel road, and the use of that. I'm also very concerned about their entrance and access onto Highway 53, which is controlled by the DOT, and the fact that they don't have very much property, and that if the DOT does their usual requirements of widenings and turning lanes, then my property is going to be damaged by this project. And also there's no sewer there, so they're going to be putting in a septic tank. I have a rental property already in place there, which has a well close by. There are other residential homes that have wells, so I'm very concerned about the location of their septic tank, and I know the location that they picked is right on their property line, so that's going to impose a problem to adjoining property owners for the future ability for them to put a well in this area. The other question I asked was, how are you going to be selling alcohol there? And I was told, yes, there probably will be alcohol sales. And how are you going to get an alcohol sales license in proximity to the school? Because I've had many people want to do the same thing on my property, and I was told, no, you can't get a liquor or beer license on your property because of where you are to the school. So if this is going to go through, again, I'm only opposed because I don't have the information. I don't know what's going on there, but I certainly would want to be able to do the same thing on my property. I'd like to put some apartments in there and maybe a Waffle House or another gas station or something like that if we're going to open the door to do this. And I'll stop right there. Thank you. And
Thank you,
I
Mr. Turner.
appreciate you being here and taking your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Anyone else speak in opposition to the application? This time we'll close the board for discussion. Oh, yes. If you have a rebuttal, you can, you're welcome to.
Sure. I was not aware, and I apologize to Mr. Turner, I was not aware that he was awaiting additional responses, but we can certainly address some of his concerns and will continue to do so between now and the Board of Commissioners. But as far as stormwater flow, we will acknowledge here in a public forum, no one has a right to put water on somebody else's property without their permission. This will have to be designed to retain stormwater so that it doesn't flow off-site in areas where it's not allowed. So that will be part of the engineering design for stormwater. As far as GDOT, we really can't control how GDOT is going to permit this. But we also know that we can't go and force Mr. Turner to give any land that he doesn't want to give. We'll have to work with him if that's necessary. Otherwise, GDOT will control how the access is designed. As far as septic, again, health department's going to regulate that. We understand you can't have a septic field within 100 feet of a well. So our client's going to comply with all regulations. And then finally, regarding alcohol sales, that is something that we are still having to work out with the county. We understand that the school board has now purchased the property, I guess, between the high school and 53, and that's run down there. Now it's closer than 600 feet. So there is a variance procedure that the county has. It is run completely separately. It goes straight to the Board of Commissioners. So we may be having to pursue that as well, but we have to get the underlying zoning first to be able to understand whether to move forward with that. So we are happy to continue to work with Mr. Turner. I'll answer any questions that he has. But I think that your codes address almost all of his concerns that are expressed. We certainly want this to be a nice development so that it improves his property values and doesn't degrade this. Thank you.
Let me ask you while you're at the podium.
Yes, sir.
In your capacity, you're representing Mr. Patel, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How big of a hurry is he in to get this done? I mean, are you looking to get an answer tonight, or would you like to address Mr. Turner's concerns over the next month, or?
We'd rather get a slow yes than a fast no. So if you think that'd be a good idea to hold off and speak with Mr. Turner, we're certainly open to that opportunity.
Just thought I would ask if Mr. Patel's
Understood.
open to that. Okay, thank you.
One question, make sure I understand. You said once, if you get this rezoned, then you have to try to get a variance through the Board of Commissioners in the county to sell alcohol, and it being closer than the recommended feet that's now in place.
It's an interesting situation because the state minimum is a 300-foot separation. The county minimum is 600 feet, but just two parcels to the north in the city of Dawsonville, it's 300 feet. They use, so we're in this situation where we got to abide by county rules, but the properties that are in unincorporated Dawson County are at a competitive disadvantage to that, which is just two parcels north in the city. So, if this goes forward to the Board of Commissioners, they have to make the ultimate decision on the zoning, but they're going to have to also make an ultimate decision as to would they allow sales within 450 feet of the school system's property.
Does Mr. Patel's property touch any property that's actually in the city of Dawsonville?
It does not. In
It does
fact,
not. Okay.
It's I think there's Mr. Turner's property is one that separates that.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So if you were to get this rezoning, but you did not get the variance for the alcohol, How would that affect the project?
Our client's gonna have to assess whether he can make this project work, selling only Gatorades and snacks and gasoline. But I do know that beer and wine sales, it would be beer and wine sales by the package only, no consumption on premises. But that's a major part of the business model.
So what happens if we approve the rezoning? They don't move forward.
Then like any other recommendation that goes before the board, they make the decision and there is no variance on this one. This is just a recommendation to proceed forward.
Well, what I'm saying is it could be, they'd have the zoning and it could be something else.
It could. But he's already disclosed their intent, so.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
And if I can respectfully, we've got to get through this process to get it all in front of the Board of Commissioners. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
This time we'll close the board for discussion, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, it sounds like they're fine with tabling it if you have some time to,
That's what he said.
yeah. That would be my thought.
So is there a motion
Motion to table
until
until
our next
the
meeting?
next meeting.
Second.
Moving a second table until our next meeting. All in favor? Motion is carried 2-0. Mr. Turner, Mr. Underwood, if you would, we will hear this again, discuss this again at our next meeting, which will be December the 20th, 6 p.m., same location.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Submittal deadlines and planning commission meeting dates.
Yes, sir. What you have before you is the updated submittal deadlines for the planning commission for variance and rezoning requests to be submitted. Due to zoning procedure law changes that go into effect July 1st. We had to readjust our submittal deadlines. So what you see before you is the cause and effect of the zoning procedure law changes.
You need a motion on this?
I will, yes, sir.
Gentlemen, last page, look at it. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting dates.
Second.
Moving a second to approve. All in favor? Motion is carried 3-0. Updates by planning and development. Ms. Farrell.
We are wrapping up code changes, working with legal counsel, and you will most likely see a packet of strike through and underline. That's what happens when you do a lot of strike through and underline. I think it's easier to read in paper. The cheat sheet is taking longer to do, I think, than the code changes. But we hope to get it on the December 20th agenda. Because the moratorium is kind of snagged based on that. And the methodology for the update to the impact fees is complete. And we'll move on to the next phase of hammering out the future capital improvement needs to balance the impact. That's it.
Thank you. That leaves us with item K, gentlemen. That's adjournment. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
This time we are adjourned. Thank you very much.